Welcome to Why Lake Steward Works. We hope to guide and inform you as you start up Lake Steward programs with the help of Minnesota Lakes and Rivers. I'm Dorothy Whitmer, a volunteer for the Gull Chain of Lakes Association, or GCOLA, and I am the Lake Steward Coordinator. Lake Steward is based on the fact that what happens on land determines what happens to the water quality of the lake. Natural lakeshore is best for water quality. This is a photo of one of our Lake Steward properties on Gull Lake in Cass County near Brainerd, where we have mixed broadleaf and evergreen forest. There are native plants with deep roots and the least runoff of harmful nutrients into the water. Therefore, this shoreline is healthiest for the lake. But too often what happens is lawn down to the lake. Homeowners develop the land by cutting down the trees, pulling out all native plants, and then growing a monoculture of lawn grass that is mowed close to the ground, giving it especially shallow roots. Lawns tend to become compacted over time, making them more like a hard surface, a racetrack for runoff. If that weren't enough to harm the lake, fertilizer and herbicides are sprayed broadly and beach sand blankets put down to smother native plants. The nutrient load of phosphorus from the soil and nitrogen from fertilizer grows algae and creates an altered lake where aquatic invasive species, or AIS, can thrive more easily. What is ironic is that owners are spending money and energy to cause erosion, harm their own lakeshore property, and eliminate habitat for the wildlife that they would otherwise find wonderful to enjoy. Why would anyone do these things? Pride, admiration. People want to do what others do. For example, homeowners associations, HOAs, and cities may demand a mowed lawn. And here's the amazing thing, even on lakeshore, the view and control. There's a great ad for a brand name fertilizer for your lawn, showing a young guy using a fertilizer spreader with the tagline, "You got this." To sell fertilizer, they are selling control, and that message is powerful. There is no sense in trying to fight pride and admiration. What Lake Steward does is encourage it. That's why Lake Steward works. By the 1960s, Minnesotans became so alarmed at the loss of natural lakeshore that they passed the Shoreland Management Act of 1969, Minnesota state law. Shoreland is defined as the land within 1,000 feet of a lake. The law is called a minimum standard, meaning that local government, or cities and counties, can have laws that are stricter. And I think it's wonderful if they do, but they must comply at least with state law. Lakes are classified by size and depth into these three categories: natural environment, the smallest, then recreational development, and general development. The bigger the lake, the greater the development impact that is allowed. For example, these three numbers are the number of feet that unsewered houses must be set back from the water. Natural environment lakes are the strictest at 150 feet. For recreational, it's 100, and general is 75. So for Minnesota state law, the basic rules are the same for all lakes. It's a matter of degree. For state law, all lakes have lower limits on lot size to prevent crowding. Setbacks keep structures back from the water so that runoff from roofs has a chance to soak in before it can contact the lake. The maximum impervious coverage is 25% of a lot area. Impervious coverage includes the house, driveway, and walkways, but also decks. There can be no intensive tree removal anywhere in shoreland. Remember, that's 1,000 feet. And no fertilizer or pesticides can enter the shore impact zone, which is halfway from the water to the house. The authors of the Shoreland Management Act no doubt were picturing a result like this photo. In the center of the photo is a house, but it's not visible because of the wall of forest along the lake shore that has been preserved. On the right is the white house of the next door neighbor who has cut back a few branches in order to have a view of the lake, which is allowed by the Shoreland Management Act. It was all a great plan. So how's that working out for you? 50 years later, here's the result. Where is the wall of trees that should be along the shoreline? Where is the buffer zone that is supposed to keep runoff from reaching the lake? After the shock of this photo wears off, if we look more closely, we can see some strengths of the Shoreland Management Act. The house is set back, and because of the contour of the near shore area, runoff from the house doesn't flow directly into the lake. Local government, the counties and cities that enforce the law, have done relatively well with mandating setbacks and managing stormwater runoff from buildings. The weakness is with vegetation and habitat, and that is the last defense from nutrients and silt for our lakes. The weaknesses of the Shoreland Management Act are that once the trees along the shoreline are gone and the properties are redeveloped, there is no rule to replant or reforest. Once the buffer zone is gone, there is no rule to put it back. The presence of fertilizer and pesticides in the shore impact zone is difficult to enforce. How can Lake Steward help? In the left column, without Lake Steward, we talked about pride and admiration, the view, and control. On the right, lake stewards are proud and admired for their environmental friendliness. They have a better view of the lake because it's not just sterile land and water. There are native trees and plants and wildlife, and those things also bestow cooling shade and something highly valued by us all, privacy. And instead of expending effort and resources fighting for control, nature is controlling things for them while they hang out in the hammock. This sounds great, but how do we reach lakeshore owners to influence them? Here's a wonderful color brochure by Cass County intended to educate people. But taken alone, it can be baffling and leave lakeshore owners feeling lost. We can't decide to educate someone else. The someone who's being educated wants that college degree or that driver's license. They apply, they pay fees and tuition, and they study. I know this sounds obvious, but you wouldn't believe how many well-meaning but disappointing programs start out with deciding to educate someone else. But what we can do is meet people halfway. We start with Lake Association members who already care about their lake, and then we entice them with a quiz about their own lakeshore, and we award them publicly. Here are the steps for Lake Steward. Lake Steward of G-Cola emailed our short quiz about Lakeshore to over 600 of our Lake Association members, and within 3 days, we had over 100 responses. What makes members respond? They are waiting for you. They care about lake water quality and want to take action. They just haven't known how. We visit the properties and either award Lake Steward or give advice on how to improve. Lake Stewards proudly display the award sign at the end of the dock, and we publish photos and articles that influence more people to become Lake Stewards. The award, the beautiful Lake Steward sign with all native plants and animals and your Lake Association logo. Publicity. Here's one of the first photo pages Sheila Johnston did for our newsletter. Lake Stewards and their families, including Luna the golden retriever in the upper right, on their lakeshore with their Lake Steward signs. It's a thrilling moment for them and for us. These two maps of the Gull chain of lakes show the property locations of our 23 Lake Stewards in 2019 on the left and the 51 Lake Stewards in 2020 on the right. Lake Stewards are not evenly spaced on shore. Instead, they cluster. That is because Lake Stewards influence their neighbors to join in. By the end of the second season, 2 miles of Gull Chain Lakeshore was under Lake Steward protection. Going into 2021, in addition to our 51 Lake Stewards, we already have over 100 candidates. We write a story about a Lake Steward for each of our 4 newsletters we publish every year. Our first Lake Steward story started with the words, "They had a vision for their new home on Gull Lake. It would be nestled among birches, pines, and native grasses, with almost all the surrounding land kept in its natural state." But they had to fight for it. Human interest stories about the families and what is important to them. You can read this story in our summer 2019 newsletter on our website, gcola.org. Now I'm going to give you an assignment. If you're taking notes, write down these 3 words, those other people. Those other people. See if you can catch yourself thinking or someone else saying those words. Just a few weeks ago, I was on a Lake Steward phone call with this great guy who said partly in jest, "I don't know what those other people are doing." I have fallen into the trap myself. It is a sign that to be successful in the mission for water quality, instead of judging others, we need to understand them. Because there are no other people. It's just us. We need all of us to save the lakes. So we are delighted that you're here. Thank you for bringing Lake Steward to your lake. Welcome to How to Start Up MLR Lake Steward for Your Lake. I'm Dorothy Whitmer, volunteer for the Gull Chain of Lakes Association, or GCOLA. I'm the Lake Steward Coordinator, and I've been a member of Minnesota Lakes and Rivers for many years. When I talk about my experiences with Lake Steward, I mean Lake Steward of GCOLA, which was launched on the Gull Chain of Lakes in May of 2019. So we only have 2 years of experience. MLR Lake Steward, on the other hand, we hope will be on your lake, and it will be your chance to make history. The 4 components again for MLR Lake Steward are the quiz, called MLR Score Your Shore, the site visit, the award, and publicity, which creates momentum. How is the quiz MLR Score Your Shore different and better? When Minnesota DNR put Score Your Shore on their website in 2012, it was revolutionary because it signaled that lakeshore owners needed to take responsibility for the health of their lakes. But the questions are limited and complicated, and you take the quiz with paper and pencil. Then Michigan took Minnesota's Score Your Shore and added questions to build Rate Your Shoreland. It was an improvement because it's online and you get a result, but the data go to the state of Michigan and it ends there. MLR Score Your Shore, on the other hand, is just as comprehensive, but is more straightforward. You get great feedback, and the data go where they are useful to lake associations or individuals. And here's the key. This quiz is the connection to candidates for Lake Steward, and that means action to protect our lakes. To start MLR Lake Steward, simply email the link to MLR Score Your Shore to your Lake Association members. Done. Check. Next, the Lake Steward signs and your Lake Association logo or name to go on the signs. After you have identified the properties that will receive the awards, MLR will order the signs for you and will pay 50% of the cost for the first 100 signs that are ordered through them. Guidance. We have videos on several topics and more communication to come. The last 2 things are unique to you: a list of email addresses, which in our case were from GCOLA, and a Lake Steward coordinator. GCOLA is a large lake association with a deep bench. There are 3 of us who run Lake Steward. On the left, Chris Dreesen with Sheila Johnston and myself. Chris and Sheila are naturalists. So when we go on site visits, they identify native trees and plants and look out for invasive species. They also give advice to owners about plant selection and shoreline restoration because they co-chair that program for GCOLA. However, especially on smaller lakes, it would not be difficult to run Lake Steward with one person, the Lake Steward coordinator. I was surprised to find out that we have 900 members, but only 600 email addresses. If you have under 400 members, like the vast majority of lake associations in Minnesota, and 150 email addresses, and if the responses are like ours, you might have only 7 site visits the first year, 6 MLR Lake Stewards, and $270 in signs if you didn't have matching funds. That would give you a season to test the waters. What does the Lake Steward coordinator do? Jeff Forrester will send the results of MLR Score Your Shore directly to you. You would send out emails asking permission to visit the property, go on site visits, perhaps with another volunteer, then send a follow-up email about what you found. If the award is given later, someone else in the Lake Association who is a good photographer, a good socializer, or who enjoys writing could take the photo and interview the Lake Steward at the same time. When each quiz result comes in with a contact email, I try to respond immediately. I thank all candidates and ask for permission to visit the property. Remember, there is no cutoff score. Everyone is offered a site visit because we need everyone. High scores make great role models and influence others. Low scores can have a tremendous impact if they were to, say, eliminate lawn and put in a thriving buffer zone. MLR Score Your Shore also has a comment section that can be very revealing. Be sure to respond specifically to comments so that respondents know they are being heard. Before your visit, it's good to have the feet of lakeshore, the acreage, and where the lot markers are, especially if the owner will not be there. GCOLA was able to say that we have over 2 miles of lakeshore under Lake Steward protection because we have the shoreline measurements. Try to make it easy for the owners. They may only be there on weekends with guests, So we say that it will take 10 to 15 minutes, and the magic words, "You do not need to be there if we have your permission to walk the property." As a courtesy, we always give a time window of 2 hours if owners are absent. It's also good to set expectations. If you want more than one person to decide on the award, which is probably a good idea, then you can tell the owner that there won't be a decision until you can confer, but they will be notified within, say, 2 days. What you would do at a site visit when the owner is absent is measure the depth of the buffer zone and the length of the shoreline that is impervious. Check the criteria for MLR Lake Steward and observe for native trees, shrubs, and plants, and invasive plants. Don't forget to take photos of lakeshore, the property, and anything that you think is different or special about the home, like this homemade birdhouse on a snag, a stump that was left standing to provide habitat for wildlife. What if the owner has asked you for help with erosion or with native plantings on the shoreline? Lake Steward of Gicola has been working over the winter with Minnesota Native Landscapes on an exciting new project to help bring to lakeshore owners the help that they need quickly and efficiently. This is a satellite image from Google Maps of a very exposed piece of shoreline that has been eroding. The straight red line in the shape of an upside down letter V is a proposed tamarack log bundle wave break, a bioengineering tool, behind which in yellow will be the emergent planting zone that will protect the eroding shoreline, the bright green wavy line. Now in this photo of the same shoreline, the wave breaker bundle is sketched in at left. On the right, the grid represents a brush mattress made from willow and dogwood cuttings, secured with wooden stakes to protect new plants from any movement of the water. Emergent plugs are planted through the mattress. If owners want help and agree, we are planning to take an iPad loaded with a program designed by Minnesota Native Landscapes, enter data and photos while we're at the site visit, and then upload so that the owner can work with the company in a process like this that we are calling virtual consulting. We hope that virtual consulting will be a way to jumpstart shoreline restoration projects. This is a diagram of the shoreline zones adapted from the DNR. The shoreline buffer zone extends from the water's edge 25 to 50 feet landward. It looks narrow in this diagram, but picture it extending back from the water halfway to the house. That would be a desirable buffer zone because that is the definition of the shore impact zone by Minnesota law. The upland zone extends from the shoreline buffer zone back to the access road, and the aquatic zone is from the water's edge out into the lake up to 100 feet. This is a screenshot of the MLR Score Your Shore quiz. On the right are the numbers 10, 5, 5. There are 10 questions on the quiz. 5 can be verified at the site visit, but the other 5 are difficult to verify, and you will have to take the owner's word for it. Because of that, we tend to downplay the numerical score and focus on the owner's approach to lake stewardship. Here is what we can verify. The shoreline buffer zone must be 75% or more of the length of the shoreline and 25 to 50 feet deep from the water's edge landward. We can verify hazards in the buffer zone like fire pits, piles of leaves or grass clippings, and pet waste. There should be no obvious evidence of stormwater runoff into the lake. If there is riprap along shore, plants should be allowed to grow in it. Likewise, owners should be encouraged to allow plants to grow on natural beaches and in the water. And the upland must be at least 50% native trees, shrubs, and plants. 5 of the questions can be hard to verify. We can usually tell whether a lawn is broadly treated with herbicides or pesticides because the lawn is too perfect. There will be no other plants like broadleaf, creeping Charlie, or dandelions. But it's usually hard to detect fertilizer and definitely hard to detect mosquito and insect pesticide or aquatic chemicals. The other questions are mechanical removal of aquatic plants, septic system, allowing fallen trees to remain in the water, and stacking dock sections in the winter. For any unverified question, we recommend talking to the owner further about it, either at the site visit or on a phone call afterward. Just have a checklist handy. On the MLR website, there will be a list of the criteria for MLR Lake Steward. What if the owners are there? I call it relentless positivity, and I use it in emails, calls, and in person. Think of it as healing the earth. Let them tell you their story and point out some wonders yourself, like native plants growing down by the water. Owners know. They know where their properties fall short of the criteria on the quiz, so there's no need to emphasize that. The goal is to change the culture. So for the reluctant, we talk about the influence they could have on their neighbors' properties and the positive impact on water quality. It's a thrilling moment to receive the Lake Steward Award. People react to the beautiful Lake Steward sign with astonished delight. The first year, more environmentally minded owners apply, and they have a sense of vindication and relief that someone understands. They are thinking, finally, you're here. MLR Lake Steward thanks you for being here today. Welcome to Clean Water, Healthy Habitat. For a lake association with a mission for clean water, it can be the signature effort that highlights you as an involved, vibrant organization. And for the Lake Steward coordinator, you feel like you're flying. Thank you for listening. Minnesota Lakes and Rivers would be happy to take your questions. Email Jeff at mnlakesandrivers.org. Thank you for bringing MLR Lake Steward to your lake.